Anthony Scaramucci, the man who may be personally responsible because of the actions he took to bring down media giant CNN, gave his first interview on Fox and Friends this morning, and I have it for you. So let's watch it.
Anthony Scaramucci, you decided to come to us and not CNN, Anthony?
Right.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah. I had a lot of choices there, Ainsley.
It's
First time you've talked.
Right.
The story was retracted.
Oh, God, yeah.
Anthony, the good news is the president promised jobs, and you're a witness that you do finally have a job since you sold your company.
See that? I don't know.
Right.
Maybe I've got
This
to
is
add
great
it.
news.
Could have gotten added to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. That's a good thing.
I know.
It's
We
a good
should have
thing for
done
the
that.
economy, Brian.
But finally off the dole.
Yeah.
Thank God.
We're going to talk about your new job in just a minute, but first let's talk a little bit about the fact that thanks to a story that CNN did earlier this week, a bunch of people got fired, and they've changed their editorial standards. They said that you were involved in a pre-inaugural meeting of sorts with some guy from a Russian investor. You said the story was all wrong, and apparently CNN agreed, didn't meet their standards. Was it fake news?
Well, was it fake news? I did meet with a person. I was at the World Economic Forum. I was in a restaurant. The person came over to me and shook my hand. I think a reporter snapped a picture. I think the first part of the fake news was senior Trump official or potential senior Trump official meeting with somebody from the Russian Sovereign Wealth Fund. But that was not a quote-unquote meeting, planned meeting,
Right.
strategic meeting, anything like that. It was really an interaction with him in a restaurant.
Right,
Just say now, so what is your thought as you begin to find out that you might be that official and that brief encounter was what they're talking about?
Well, first of all, look, I thought the whole thing was unfair. I think Senator Warren questioned Steve Mnuchin about it at his confirmation hearing. Again, it's more of this nonsense that goes on in Washington where you have the scandals incorporated. We're practicing the politics of personal destruction as opposed to serving the American people and focusing on the agenda.
But all of a sudden, you're the target.
But I'm the target, but the flip side is I also know in my heart and in my soul I haven't done anything wrong. Okay, so what ends up happening is if you've got good character and you have a strong backbone, you can hold yourself up against these people, and that's exactly what I did.
Is that why it was important for you to get a lawyer, threaten them,
Well,
say I might
see,
sue
I think all of that stuff, Ainsley, was exaggerated. I had a couple of conversations with senior staff at CNN. I made it very clear to them that the story was not accurate and that it was a defamatory story. I reminded them about my legal background, and there's a famous case called New York Times versus Sullivan that if you're talking about a public figure and you're saying something that's not truthful about the public figure, then they have a defamatory action against you. And so this is clearly not true, and it needed to be retracted. Otherwise, I think I needed to get more aggressive. But I didn't go to sue them or anything like that. I think that got a little bit overblown, to be honest.
Well, something going on over at CNN and their parent company, Time Warner, is the fact that they're trying to merge with AT&T, $85 billion merger. The last thing they would need is a great big lawsuit right now.
Certainly that's the case, Stephen. What I will say is that they moved quickly once they realized that they got the information wrong, and hopefully this will tighten up editorial standards, not just at a place like CNN, but other places. My biggest issue with the whole thing is I would like to focus on the president's agenda. I'd like to focus on what he's doing for jobs, the economy, how we're going to fix the healthcare situation, which will eventually implode upon itself if it's not fixed. I want to focus on his muscularity as it relates to our national security and not the politics of personal destruction. I don't look to hit anybody personally, guys, and I sort of don't like getting hit personally.
But Anthony, the other thing is the president has a harder time doing anything if this Russia thing continues to cycle itself. He said it. There's a cloud over it, and you would be in addition to that cloud. Some would argue that you would have, wrongly, I should add, you would have had a different job had another erroneous story not been out there earlier. This has got to be frustrating for a guy who's made all his living in the business world.
Listen, I appreciate it, but it doesn't really matter to me. Like I've said to the president in our personal conversations, I'd like to serve him, like to serve the American people. The role or the job that I have is not as important to me as the overall mission. And so for me, the Russian situation, I think, is a bunch of nonsense. I've said that. I've said that on other networks.
Van Jones said the same thing.
Well, he said it, and I think it's
Big
probably
nothing burger.
That probably could be the news about the Russian story. Okay?
What do you mean?
So I think it's a bunch of nonsense. I worked on the
you think that they
campaign.
said
I worked
it,
on the
they've been caught,
transition. I think it's a bunch of nonsense. I'd like it to stop. It certainly was nonsense related to me. It's probably nonsense related to others. And the big point about the whole thing is that the president's got a great agenda for all the American people.
So
Democrats, Republicans, race, color, and creed, doesn't matter. This president's going to do a phenomenal job for the American people.
What's your reaction to the way the mainstream media is covering the Russia collusion and the way that they're covering his campaign and his presidency?
Well, okay, so I'm not a journalist, but I did play one on television on your sister network, okay?